Yeah, we basically get this one from the mouth of the man himself, Everett Thomas, first appearance X-Men Volume 2, 36, principal character of Generation X until his murder by Emma's sister Adrian in Gen X 70, which must have been, 2001? Seen resurrected in House of X number 6. Yeah, he's got a synchronistic field, normally depicted as this trippy arrangement of rainbow-colored bars. We get a variation on that in this issue. I kind of miss the old style sync powers. But yeah, we also get a data page from CC Reyes that tells us that this field's ability to detect and imitate the powers of other mutants may have exceeded its previously formidable limits.
Yeah, and then, sure enough, not even very many pages into the issue, when they're in a showdown against the familiar children of the Vault themselves, pretty much the only people from within the Vault who we've ever met, he proves to be able to imitate their powers, even though they're not mutants. And, that could mean all kinds of things. I think the biggest reveals in here are one thing that you talked about before we recorded, Ian, that Sync seems to sort of he seems to be a sort of unreliable narrator of the events that we're seeing. And the other big reveal to me is that, like, we do get a look inside the vault. There seems to be some kind of, like, AI running things. What do y'all make of that?
Yeah, City within the dome. Hickman has had an AI named City running a facility called the Dome before.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, God. That's what that reminded me of.
Yeah, this is his Ultimate Comics. This is his Ultimate Comics from 10 years ago.
Oh, really? Right. Oh, I don't know about that. What's that like? Welcome, listeners, to another episode of School for Gifted Youngsters. We are here to talk about Cable 8, Marauders 18, Wolverine 8, New Mutants 16, X-Men Legends number 1, an outlier here, and the pièce de résistance X-Men 18 inside the vault.
The vault has opened. Kind of, sort of.
Yeah. We'll start, though, with Cable 8, one of the other issues from this batch that looks forward to some major summer events, perhaps. I'm joined by Ian.
Howdy, Homo sapiens, Homo superiors, and Homos in general. All our students, all our teachers.
And Marius.
Hello.
And starting from Cable 8, about a week and a half ago, introducing a lot more time travel than we're used to in
more time travel
than the Reign of X.
More time travel than we're used to with Cable, though. That's kind of par for the course. Right. But yeah, we've got Cable and Domino in Japan, because Cable needs help on that whole strife and missing babies things, and Domino needs gyoza. Also, Domino could use a book where she feels fun and important, so actually she can just stay here. Batshit International Adventures with Goofy Gal Pals was what this book originally promised, but has not consistently delivered. So, yeah, Dom can stay. Pro Dom.
What do you think, Marius?
Well, I mean, I agree with some of what Ian was saying. I enjoyed this issue. I enjoyed Domino in here. One thing I actually really liked about her dynamic with Cable was, there was one panel where she was like, come on, stop giving me that look. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, for most of my life, you were kind of too old for me. And then, like, implying that now he's obviously way too young for her. She's too old for him. That's just an inherently, like, awkward dynamic. And it's kind of fun that would be alluded to,
Yeah. It's better than, like, true sexual tension, which would have felt more awkward for me. I'd rather they feel awkward than that I feel awkward.
No, yeah, that would be, But look, I, on that note, I do like the fact that this issue delves a bit more into the Cable replacing his older self sort of history, but also like his motivation behind that. Because like I don't like it when too many things like pre-Hickman era are unacknowledged, especially when it's stuff that's happened so recently. I actually I reread the Rosenberg run on Uncanny X-Men, or at least parts of it, like the final issue of that, just a couple days ago, or maybe even today, I'm not sure. But there was so much stuff in there that was just like never picked up on ever again. And so like this is with Cable, obviously it's an exception to that general rule, which I like, because it's really like this guy murdered his older self, and now he's just he's spending time with all these people who were really close friends of his older self, and that's just something that's inherently weird about that, and that is being explored to some extent in this issue more than it is in other issues. And then of course we get like new input on the future Cable, another place, another time,
somewhere bad,
Right.
somewhere bad.
Right, that's the real big thing about this, I think. Like X-Men 18, this issue actually picks up on things from last year of real time, from weeks or months ago of in setting time, and it does explain just a tiny bit more, not as much I was hoping for when I first saw that like red landscape again.
Yeah, same.
But just a tiny bit more of what's going on there. I mean, what do you guys think that's like getting at now with this?
I mean, look, I'm still not sure if it's supposed to be like old young Cable or just like regular old Cable. I'm thinking right now that it would be the former, because previous
Right.
issues in this run have sort of indicated that it seems like old Cable is just really gone, like in terms of how the time travel mechanics seem to work in this book. It's just maybe he's just not coming back for the time being. Obviously he's going to be back at some point, right? Like, which comic book character isn't? But maybe this is just like like an aged up version, or like alternate future whatever version of young Cable. There's an allusion to like entering a trap, even though it's a trap. And that reminded me of one line of dialogue earlier in this issue, where one of the clones was remarking on Strife assuming that Cable killing his older self was like a setup or trap. I wonder if any of that is connected in any way, shape, or form. But it's there seems to be some relation to what's going on with the Strife clones and the kidnappings and whatever, and this like again alternate time whatever.
We don't know who we're looking
space.
at, what he's doing, or where he is. We don't know.
Yeah.
We still don't know.
But it's still the fact that I just rambled on for like 2 minutes without essentially giving like any definitive take on what is even happening. It just goes to show we don't have as much information still. We know this is some sort of trap, and we have some unnamed entity like setting up that trap and then laughing about Cable.
Yeah, well, I do feel a little less uncertain now. I feel it's clear that he's not in limbo or some other hell. And that indicates that it is not old Cable who went to hell when he died, but rather more likely to be old young Cable.
Right.
I mean, if he's talking about his nemesis, it's almost got to be Strife. Like, who else would it be besides Strife?
Yeah, I agree.
The man doesn't have a robust rogues gallery.
Right. So what it kind of indicates is that like what all these little snippets have been building toward is something that in the coming months will intersect into this time travel narrative that has been mostly a joke ever since we saw Strife get involved. I mean, that was our reaction, was to laugh at Strife, but
Yeah.
and it could still have humorous elements, but it seems a strong indication to me that this will kind of like blow up outward from the pages of Cable into other issues in the summer, and that like the very commitment of the very commitment that Chuck and Eric made in at Moira's behest against both of divination and time travel will be sort of like tested, right? That like this is going to be a matter for the council, not just for like Cable traipsing around going on dates antagonizing cops, but a matter for
Yeah.
like Krakoan society at large. Um it
That's true.
Yeah. Um there's one other little thing that I was surprised to realize in this issue that has to do with like general policy of the Krakoan society, which is like the Cuckoos are of course clones, and I often don't think about it.
Yep.
We've talked on this podcast before about how they're actually like a weapon project according to the denouement of Grant Morrison's New X-Men.
And if anyone would know, it should be Morrison. Yeah.
Right. And they're like, you know, they're each clones, maybe not of each other, but they're mostly identical clones, and they're clones of Emma Frost, right? And yet they brought one of them back to life, didn't they? There was one who was dead, maybe two, and they brought them both back to life.
Wait, what was that?
Because we started the Hoxpox era with a full 5 cuckoos. Two of the sisters, Sophie and Esme, were killed in Morrison's run.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. No,
right.
That's true.
And this issue of like who is too much of a clone to come back and who is not enough of a clone, so it's okay. It keeps getting brought up by the different writers in these little asides. And I don't think they're just jokes, to be honest. Like,
no, I don't think so. Yeah, I feel like that's building to something. We have those storylines like pretty deliberately in many books. We got that stuff going on in New Mutants just a couple of issues ago. Gabby was talking about that. Obviously, she's a clone, but she's very much like her own person. Like, nobody in their right mind would be like, oh, Gabby is just basically Laura, right?
Right, and not only in that issue, but in the issue of New Mutants that we're about to talk about, it comes up again.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, actually another book, Hellions, the first storyline about Madeline, you know?
Right, that was what sort of like got this topic rolling. But we'll get to New Mutants after Marauders.
Yeah.
Which was the next issue to come out, and which I think also has a little bit of a sprinkling of some of these same topics in it. Though, as Ian pointed out when we were talking before the recording, it's also just a by the numbers Madripoor bar fight or something like that, right? So what'd you all think of?
Wait, can I add one more thing on Cable?
Sure.
So one thing I'm kind of unsure about. I want to hear your opinion on this. The way that Domino's powers were handled in this issue, I'm kind of ambivalent about, because like it's fun. It's really funny. Like that panel of the Strife clone just getting completely like his head exploded, blasted off by this meteorite. It's just
Chekhov's meteorite.
It is kind of funny
because we open the issue with space rocks colliding, thinking that it's just kind of a metaphorical illustration of Domino's power. But no, that was actually something that was happening in real time as they were speaking. Because...
Oh, no, it was millions of years ago, it said. But I guess it's implied that that's what set off the chain of events that led to it.
Right. It is, I mean, yeah, it's goofy. It also, I mean... Another like ongoing question sprinkled across many issues is like, how do their powers change when they're brought back? What does that mean? Yeah. What is the true nature of their powers? And like, it does make sense to ask like, are Domino's powers like fate powers? Is it a form of divination in a way? Like, if things just kind of like happen to make sure that she does one thing, right? Like we could assume that her luck powers mean she's like survives, right? But it's more
Yeah.
specific than that. Like her luck powers ensure that certain things happen, not just that she survives.
It's
And
also
so
just like, I'm confused by this because in some ways it's implied in this issue that she has like Layla Miller powers, where she just she has like the idea of like having to go to a certain place, and then
exactly,
whatever
yeah.
she's investigating just happens to happen at that place. I remember her powers being more like deliberate, if that makes sense. Like in the comics I read of hers, like in the odds when I was introduced to the character, I remember her being sort of able to manipulate likelihoods, and then she would
Yes.
use that in combat.
Yeah. Whereas what the impression we get from the whole run of Dawn of X and ROX, I think, is that it all happens
Yeah,
unconsciously,
she's
which
just
is
lucky.
fine. Yeah, that's fine with me. But and I like it. But if she just has to trust her unconscious, and then certain goals will be realized, then that sort of just means she's like an unconscious fortune teller, right? Like if
Right.
like she can perceive the future, but not at the conscious level, and she just has to like kind of like go with the
Yeah,
flow,
just
and then things will happen a certain way, right? Which brings up an implicit possible conflict between her and Moira, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true as well. It's also just sort of like she's like a very like convenient character for writers to put in their books, right? Because it's like you don't have to come
well,
up
if you really
with
lean
too much
into it,
stuff to
though,
write yourself out of a corner. Yeah, I mean, I guess
because
that's true.
Yeah.
yeah,
But then
which is
it's
how it
weird
worked
that
here.
her luck powers seem to be working differently in X Force.
Yeah, because in addition to the
Yeah.
meteorite, we do have that her hankering for gyoza leads them to the one exact specific Tokyo robot cafe where there's a Strife clone hanging out, which, yeah,
Right,
doesn't
right,
make a
right,
lick
right,
of
right.
goddamn sense. But
Well,
honestly,
it
that's
does if
kind of how I
we.
like it. That
that's fine. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
it fits the comedic tone.
exactly. Oh my god, is it so hard for these things to be fun?
No, it is fun. It is fun. I would point out that it doesn't. Her powers don't lead them to like the crux of the problem, right? They don't lead them to like whoever the main strife is, right?
But they
Yeah.
get a
So her
clue.
powers sort of
And
function.
gyoza.
They get a clue exactly. So her powers function this way that sort of like builds a narrative. It like creates the story that the author is creating, which is part of why I draw this interpretation that like in a way she's sort of telling the future. Um, who knows if it'll matter? I don't really think she's going to be in X Force much anymore. So
Who is?
we'll see where she
Yeah, she
like
might not.
where she'll maybe land somewhere else, and maybe she'll be one of the new X-Men. Maybe then it will matter for sure. Um, but okay, one last thing I just want to say on Cable is that the very last thing I expected out of this issue was a return to the old Cable on the Red Planet plotline, and any kind of indications that this was going anywhere, because it's still like happening while Cable is also like the avatar of Null. You know what I mean? So like it's like
God.
so
Yeah.
far outside the continuity that like I was very caught off guard when it suddenly is like
Yeah.
I'm,
making gestures toward a continuous element.
I'm interested in seeing when Cable and Sword, the books, meet up when they get on the same page.
But that's also just like a general problem with like crossovers. Like I remember that being an issue like way back when I started reading comics. Secret Invasion by Brian Michael Bendis was going on, and that event had like 8 issues, and they would come out monthly. And so for 8 months, it was just like Skrull invasion all over the place. But then, of course, I read Amazing Spider-Man by Dan Slott at the same time. And I was like kind of wondering, like I was like 11 years old too. So I was kind of wondering, wait, so how can all this stuff be happening at the same time? Like on the one hand, Spider-Man is like in the Savage Land with the Avengers or whatever. And on the other hand, he's just going about his daily life, and there's no sort of indication that, Skrulls are running around. I feel like that's just a general comic book issue. So So it's
It
very much
is.
like Cable can do whatever in King in Black, and then I don't think that's gonna affect this book too much. And then
No.
in hindsight, you're just gonna have to make sense of how it fits into whatever.
It'll be yeah. But I mean, it's an issue with all comics, of course, but it can be mitigated by editorial teams working together, right?
Yeah,
And we have here an example of a very closely knit, well managed editorial team who generally do a really good job. This is why it strikes us when there's an oddity, right? Because otherwise we see a lot of consistency in the like across all the different X books, and
that's
so.
true.
And so, you know, you can only ask so much of them, but I want to ask them for a little bit more. But okay, so Marauders 18, you two tell the listeners a little about it, and I'll be right back.
Sure, it's back to Madripoor again, as Emma, Kate, and crew open a hot new hospital in Lowtown, named, of course, in memory of deceased human ally of mutant kind, Dr. Moira McTaggart. Chuck and Mags are present, baffled, bemused, and bewildered, covering poorly.
That was that whole scene was sort of a bombshell for me because, and maybe, like there's just something so sinister about it, them opening up this whole memorial and Proteus being there, which is very unusual, I would assume.
Proteus getting out of the house, yeah, very unusual.
Yeah, especially because like as a member of the Five, that's something you like usually the members of the Five are very much like protected on Krakoa just because they're so essential to the operations on Krakoa, and we get illusions of them being or illusions over illusions of them being sort of having to be safeguarded, of course with all the null stuff going on obviously in Sword. But so it's like we are surprised to see him there, but also obviously like Chuck and Max are are surprised by that. But then I guess like what I'm wondering about right now, because one of them is like I think it's Emma who's like it's worth it for the look on Eric's and Charles's faces.
Yeah, what are we supposed to make of that? Because Emma's not supposed to know that Moira's alive.
That's what I'm wondering right now. Is it just supposed to be like, wow, like Moira obviously meant a lot to them, blah, blah, blah. I think it's more than that. I actually do think that maybe some key players on Krakoa know more about Moira than they let on. And this is all just it's very subtle, but it's also very like insidious, especially with Proteus. Like I'm only now like flipping back to that issue, noticing that he's like crying, like he's like really like emotionally done, right? He's like very very moved by the unveiling of that statue, and so I guess it's like like he obviously doesn't seem to know she's still alive. That is gonna come back up for sure at some point.
Yeah, Proteus is definitely toward the top of a not insubstantial list of people who are going to have dramatic reactions upon learning that Moira's only been playing possum for 20 years our time.
Yeah. I think that's real significant. And I think it could hopefully lead to some questions being asked.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, elsewhere this issue, I guess we get that little vignette with Callisto and Mask, the latter is transformed at the thought of using his powers therapeutically to cure disfigurements instead of just causing them to freak out X-Men or give women tentacles.
Yeah. He's a reformed Zimishi, recovering his humanity points as we speak.
I'm not too familiar with this character. Do you want to fill me in on
him?
Yeah,
Mask is one of our classic Morlocks. He's an ugly, creepy guy who normally just like wears a hood and looks like a weird Dracula and then touches people's faces until they get lumpy and scary. Or if Claremont is feeling extra kinky, does give women tentacles. I think a couple of times. It's like a recurring
Ooh,
theme.
spicy.
Um, I have I have a quick question about this issue, and maybe y'all don't know, but like when the Kid Fire Club is
Oh
like
God,
talking to each other, yeah, the Hellfire Club Junior, the Burger King gang, whatever
Hellfire
we want to call
Brats.
them, the Hellfire Brats. One of them is called Frankenstein, and like, is it supposed to be
Yes,
Frankenstein? It's supposed to be like the person from the 19th century Frankenstein, or what's the
he
deal
is
with
not
that?
Victor Frankenstein. Victor Frankenstein and a lineage of the Frankenstein family associated with the creation of the monster are part of Marvel canon, have been since the 70s
Okay.
horror comics boom. Yeah, I think we are to take that this is the great, maybe add a couple, grandson,
Mm-hmm.
nephew, whatever, of Victor, because he does attack the Jean Grey school with an army of Frankensteins in the first couple of
Mm.
issues of Aaron and Michello's Wolverine and the X-Men. Hacha!
Okay. I like that. I like that. I always like to see these like public domain intellectual properties get thrown into like a huge blender with each other. Um, the uh, anything else y'all want to say about Marauders 18?
So I like this issue overall. I think I was surprised by the pacing. I thought that it was gonna take place over the course of just like a day, like a 1 day in Madripoor thing. But it seemed a bit more like long term than that, and it was about the general like political developments around that part. And Madripoor is usually never like my favorite element of X-Men world building, but it was handled well here, I think, especially with the uprisings and the UN stuff. I thought it was pretty good. But
Yeah,
I just want to see more and find out more about what is happening with Shaw. But it looks
right.
like that's sort of shelved for the time being.
At least until the gala, I think. I personally like to see them throwing their like political economic weight around the government of Krakoa and the businesses. Uh, it could sort of lead to more interesting questions about colonialism than the ones that we've got tired of in X Force, and
Yeah,
it also
True.
just makes sense in terms of their like wealth
true,
and power.
true.
Yeah. Staying in Madripoor, this most recent issue of Wolverine, one that I joked was just inspired by a scene from Black Panther, was like much more rooted in that scene than I even expected.
Yeah.
It has some like turnabouts that are also pretty predictable. I mean, yeah, I don't think we should spend much time on it. It sort of ends with, I guess, the Mr. North who's speaking to Miss Ramirez of the CIA at the end of it is Maverick. Is Maverick's surname North?
Yes. We just spent 3 issues all about this character. They maybe mentioned his real name once, and that was maybe all we learned about him, other than I guess he's kind of a dick. It's yeah. I actually remember Maverick from the 90s. I'm probably one of the few who actually remembers the next badass cool guy character from the 90s. I want to say that he showed up in the John Byrne end of the Jim Lee comics. So, yeah, a very 90s mutant, had his own short ongoing circa 1998 or so, early Jim Chung art. Um, I don't
Damn.
remember him being quite the personification of toxic behavior and everything that I find unappealing about Wolverine in this book, in those books. But yeah, we sure did just spend 3 issues digging up this character to then shelve him again
Yeah,
after.
it certainly is a character. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
mean,
enjoy this issue too much.
no.
I don't know.
I
Yeah, all
mean,
those issues just to end with him maybe betraying Wolverine to the CIA, but probably not. It doesn't seem like much of a cliffhanger at the end to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
good things, good things. I feel like Adam Kubert delivers, a solid issue of Wolverine on the art end of things. You get an actual, honest to goodness, testosterone pumped fight scene that with a minimum of self serious philosophical posturing spoiling it. But honestly, Mav and Wolvie would have had to have made out at the end of this meandering three-parter to have made it up for me. We did get a lusty
Yeah.
crotch grab out of it, but that's all.
Yeah. I guess I should mention that listeners who didn't read old comics as much as Ian may recognize Maverick from X-Men Origins Wolverine,
They
in
will
which he is
recognize him from that.
inexplicably. Yeah, well, we can explain enough for you to recognize him. He's inexplicably Korean in that, so his last name must not be North, but he's never given a code name or a name. And if you want to hear more about how bad that movie is, we'll have an episode on all three Wolverine movies coming for you sooner or later.
Sandstorm, deep hurting.
I completely forgot that he was in that.
It takes a lot to figure out that that's supposed to be Maverick in there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say.
Yeah,
about
as a
that.
comics fan, you just kind of have to check the names in the credits and maybe
Yeah, that's
consult a wiki.
remember when quote unquote Celine was in Dark Phoenix?
Yes. That and all she is like knife throwing hair tentacle lady.
Yeah, and then they came up with like an original character, like the dude with the dreads, right? What did he do?
In X-Men Origins Wolverine or in
Oh no, in Dark Phoenix.
I forget who he was supposed to be. I think she also had dreads. Her hair tentacles were dreads. But then there was it a male version of Blink? Is that who was in X-Men Dark Phoenix?
No. What?
There was another guy. I don't remember who he was, honestly.
No, I think he was supposed to be like an original character, but he didn't end up doing anything.
Oh my god, let's stop talking about Fox X-Men movies. We're just giving them power.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you're right. You're right. I'm getting us off track. I want to say one positive thing about Wolverine 10. I like the page of them like just like fucking burning everything to the ground in the like big like collection.
Sure, yeah, and that it's like some guy's mansion in Texas. I like that too. Yeah.
I just like I do like the like internal monologue on this page as well because it's sort of this like him thinking about his relationship memories and blah blah blah, and then he's like like fuck it, just burn it all to the ground, whatever. I like that. It was it's not amazing, and again like I'm tired of some of these character beats with Logan, but that was nice.
I mean, the real question is a year from now in Wolverine 40 or whatever, will he still be like encountering his own past and saying time to put the past behind me, if it's time to put the past behind him, then it's fucking time to put it behind him, so we'll see if that actually starts to happen or not.
Right.
Yeah. But okay, I liked New Mutants 16 a lot better. It had plenty of Shadow King stuff I was hoping for. Even a kind of like ambiguous role for Shadow King, such that you can imagine him not being so like thoroughly mercilessly evil. What about y'all?
Yeah, I like the Shadow King stuff, especially because it tied into something we talked about, I would say last episode, although I'm not too sure. It even says so in the like explaining box caption that it's like a synergy, and it says Amal Farouk, Shadow King / No Girl synergy. Like implying that this is a synergy in the same way that other powers can synergize, like the 5, the whatever, the 6 or whatever they're called in Sword.
Right.
I like that. That was all the body swapping stuff was kind of fun.
Why not?
Yeah, it was fun. I thought. Yeah,
Although
yeah.
it was kind of it was hard to keep track of. And reading the issue for the first time, I'm only now realizing that uh, if you pay attention, you can tell whose character
Yeah,
is going to possess whose
we get
body
little bubbles.
in these scenes. Yeah. I didn't notice that at first because I was confused by what was going on. But those few pages were a lot of fun.
But yeah, I was a big fan of New Mutant 16. This month's cover looks like it was spray painted onto the side of a van. Not necessarily a criticism, just an observation. Uh, but I feel like we have three interesting ongoing storylines at work in this issue. We've got the Shadow King and his kids. We've got Rain's story moves forward, and
Yes.
meanwhile, Danny and Shan get to go off to get themselves some D&D-ified otherworld adventures.
Yeah, I like that. I'm not too big a fan of that side plot necessarily, but art-wise, it was explored in a very appealing way. Because we get a great showcase of Danny's abilities, of making the unconscious sort of like manifesting that, the subconscious, I should say. That was a really good double page. Just in terms of the coloring, there's a great job done on that front by. Well, actually, let me look up the name of the colorist. I don't know if it says it here. No, it does not. That's weird. Oh, I was trying to look up the name of the colorist for New Mutants because I very much enjoyed that, especially in a scene with Danny.
I loved the 2-page spread with Danny and Xian where
Yes.
it's all sketched. That was great. That was great.
Yeah, and I very much enjoyed the coloring on those 2 pages especially. Wait, so does Rod Rice just do it all himself, or?
Yeah,
Maybe. Do they
yeah.
credit like a? Yeah.
He is a colorist. He did color work on Aquaman for
Oh, gotcha.
10 years ago. That was great, and this is what his art looks like, which also looks great. Not many people are able to channel the gothic stylized storybook sort of aesthetic of Bill Sinkowitz's original New Mutants run, but the facial
Oh,
expressions,
Yeah.
true.
the weird dreamscapey atmospheres that we get in Otherworld, yeah, very Sinkowitz.
Yeah, New Mutants is with Rod Rice doing. It looks like he's doing every issue now, right? It's certainly one of the most visually appealing books on the market right now, for me at least.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to criticize about this issue is that it sort of dipped back into the problems of the first 10 issues or so with like having so many characters
True.
that like
So many
and a lot of them
goddamn
I don't even
characters.
like there were two in particular. There were two in particular who I don't know who they are, right? There's this guy Josh who ends up roaming around Otherworld on a raptor that Jamie Braddock gave him. He has like big blue horns. I don't know who he is.
I think the Otherworld photobombers are all new characters. I'm pretty sure they're all new
Yeah, that
characters.
would have to be. I've never seen him around ever.
Okay, and then there's someone who, when Danny and Xian are going into Otherworld, this guy Julio sort of like reminds the reader what's dangerous about Otherworld or something like that. And who's Julio? I don't know who that is.
That's Richter.
Oh, that's Richter. He's all blue. He doesn't have like a. It makes sense for Richter to say it, but he just doesn't look like Richter to me. He's got no druid's cloak. He's not green. He's blue.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him either, if I'm being completely honest. But I do agree with your point, Nolan, that this is a pretty large cast of characters. We got, some of the supporting characters with, some of the younger people here. We got Gabby and the others with Shadow King. But, in terms of it still keeps a focus on, I would say, Ilyana and then Danny and Xian and Rain, which is good. Those four you wanna focus on.
Yeah, we didn't get any James Proudstar in short shorts this issue, so.
And then you got these scenes of Ilyana just hanging out with a bunch of children, and it's not clear like where it's going, so goes back to that issue, I guess.
Yeah, it was picking up from something that happened last issue, but yeah, its placement felt weird.
I found it normal because I just have gained the impression that she is the Emma Frost currently of New Mutants.
She is.
Or, which is to say, she runs it. That's basically what Scott asked her to do. Now, if she ends up in the new X-Men team, then maybe that'll stop. But for now, it does seem like she's in charge.
It's also just so funny to see her like rant about the goddamn teenagers when she's like it's not that long ago that she was a teenager, right?
Yeah,
right, but she's sort of old for her age.
Yeah, presumably she and Doug are a little bit younger than their peers since they spent so much time dead.
That too.
Oh. God.
Something else I liked about this was the little info page saying talking about Josh traipsing around Otherworld and about the items, the magic items that he has. He has something called actualization essence, and I just love that. What does actualization essence do? Does it make an unreal thing into a real thing? It just sounds cool. I like it a lot.
It was, one of the gifts that he received along with his quest from his dungeon master, King Jamie. Danny and Shan get the same treatment.
Yeah, Jamie's a great dungeon master. I'd definitely play in a campaign run by Jamie Braddock. Or one in which maybe Jamie Braddock was positioned as the sort of quest giver, the Gandalf of the setting.
Yeah, just going to say that it doesn't actually end too well for Danny and Shan by the issue's conclusion.
No, it doesn't.
Since,
right.
While overland traveling,
they'll be fine. I think they're plenty powerful. I don't think
But they are in an interesting peccadillo after rolling that random encounter with the White Rabbit and falling into the unmerciful clutches of Merlin.
Yeah, it was basically roll on a D100 table which of the different societies of Otherworld you'll encounter. Oh, that was a low roll. You're in trouble now.
Yeah, true. I guess I'm a little burned out when it comes to Otherworld stuff just because it's been featured in so many titles recently. Yeah, I feel like they should lean more into the if the Otherworld storylines are, represent high fantasy sort of stuff. I feel like they should lean back into or fairy tale or whatever. I feel like they should lean back more into the sci-fi angle of things, which I mean to some extent, of course, they are with the introduction of books like Sword.
Well, I mean, speaking of leaning into sci-fi, that probably means we should transition to our interlude, our 90s throwback interlude. Much like the 90s throwback issue of X-Men, it's all about the Shi'ar Empire.
Very much.
It's an actual throwback. It literally takes place back in that time period.
Yeah, because Brett Booth gave us X-Men 17 with its bodacious and extreme 90s art. So, yeah, glad to see him back again so soon with Fabian Nicieza kind of tying up loose ends from the introduction of Adam X just before Age of Apocalypse, which was never really wrapped up post Age of Apocalypse until now. It's, the untold true origin of Adam X, the Extreme sucker, in a tale with Summer's brothers, grandparents, time-displaced grandsons, sexy space skunk girlfriends, and dirtbag space dads.
And while this is not part of the Dawn of X, Reign of X continuity, it's not in the list of issues. I think it does matter. I think there is a reason for it to be happening now, which is that like Adam X has been reintroduced as a character in Mojo World. Uh, they're of course they're making their best effort to reintroduce almost any character ever, and he's one of them. And so some further explication is warranted in the form of this strange flashback comic.
Yeah, as someone who grew up with the 90s comics, this style of art, this style of storytelling. Yeah, everything about this one feels plucked right out of circa 1995. in the best way, though.
Right. Lots of like legs sticking up in the air with little triangular feet at the end of them, and like just cool acrobatics. I liked it plenty. It was smooth and easy to read. I hope it doesn't continue on for too long, or if there's a whole series of X-Men Legends comics, then hopefully they move on to other different kind of loose ends to tie up, and this one will just be like 2-3 issues.
Yeah, it looks like that's their plan from what I heard.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap up our Adam X story next issue, and then issues 3 and 4 are going to be Louise Simonson and Walter Simonson answering the questions that we forgot to ask about the original X Factor.
Wow.
Oh wow. Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome.
That sounds great.
Awesome.
We're looking.
I guess like I'm a bit unsure about the like 90s nostalgia trend that seems to be. It is sort of a noticeable trend though, which makes sense, right? It's like a 30-year nostalgia cycle, and now we're in the 2020s. And so I guess like there's something inherently weird about it, because art wise, of course, like for some of our younger listeners although I doubt we have many younger listeners who aren't familiar with 90s comics, but like 90s comics are very known for their very exaggerated, very gendered like portrayal of these characters. So you got the Liefeld shoulder pads, you got the extremely slim waists, and so, stuff of that nature. And so I wonder to what extent that 90s, if it is indeed like a larger trend, if that is going to cause like a lot of controversy, maybe, because it's like in like a post Comicsgate world, as much as I hate to even say that word, because it's that whole concept was so ridiculous, but I don't know. I feel like there's an increased sensitivity and warranted increased sensitivity to this sort of like very exaggerated, like to some extent very sexist portrayal of characters that were, that was kind of characteristic for the 90s. I would argue. What do we make of that? How is that going to go?
Well, I would hope that they would use this opportunity to render some criticism of that. But so far, I don't really see any, so I don't expect it. Yeah.
I don't know.
That's what I'm thinking as well.
At least so far, what I'm getting out of Brett Booth's art is that at least what's good for the goose is good for the gander, because, his Cyclops and brothers are as lush, bodacious, and seemingly semi-nude as any of his female figures, so I'm gonna give it a pass.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, give it a little more time, and someone will probably come along who'll decide to take this opportunity to criticize. But until then, I don't know. I mean, it may be that Hickman just flirted with it in that one, in the very last issue 17. Of X-Men, I think it was, or the 17, yeah. And he won't bother with it further too much. But if other authors are getting into it, then someone will come along with a kind of like a take. But speaking of the last issue of X-Men, we must conclude with some extra time spent on the newest issue of X-Men itself.
At long fucking last, inside the vault.
We've been waiting for. At long last. We are... Yeah, now I felt a little bit misled by the cover, which shows it shows my naivete to allow a cover to mislead me, but the that like we see them coming out of the vault on the cover, but what turns out to be the case in the issue is just the briefest introduction to what was going on inside the vault, and who knows when they'll come out.
Oh, also another thing I'm noticing right now about the cover, it says Boov and Corona on the cover, but on the art in this issue, of course, is Mahmoud Ashra and then Sunny Go on colors. So that's kind of maybe just an editorial mistake, but I mean that's sort of unfortunate, I guess.
I guess it makes me assume that they did like 2 to 3 issues all together and then decided how to break them up, and and like got mixed up a little on like who did the art for which parts of the duo or trio.
Right.
But yeah, we know from the end of this issue, which I won't describe, but we know from the little panel on the final info page that the next issue will also have to do with the vault. So we can anticipate at least 2 issues dealing with this. But we didn't really find much else out. I mean, it all focuses on Sync. I love Sync.
Yes.
He was arguably my favorite Gen X character, primarily because of his powers. And their intriguing nature as like meta mutant powers. I mean, I guess part of why I feel there wasn't much here is because like a fair amount of it is just like refreshing our memory of why they were sent into the vault and what they're supposed to do there. And as people who've been reading all these issues as they come out and then recording on them, that's still very fresh in our minds. And
and speculating for months as well, right?
Yes,
like this is probably one of the issues we were most excited for, and I did like this issue, but it, of course, it didn't come with as many answers as we were anticipating. But maybe we'll get them next issue.
Yeah, we basically get this one from the mouth of the man himself, Everett Thomas, first appearance X-Men Volume 2, 36, principal character of Generation X until his murder by Emma's sister Adrian in Gen X 70, which must have been, 2001? Seen resurrected in House of X number 6. He's got a synchronistic field, normally depicted as this trippy arrangement of rainbow-colored bars. We get a variation on that in this issue. I kind of miss the old-style sync powers. But we also get a data page from CC Reyes that tells us that this field's ability to detect and imitate the powers of other mutants may have exceeded its previously formidable limits.
Yeah. And then, sure enough, not even very many pages into the issue, when they're in a showdown against the familiar children of the vault themselves, pretty much the only people from within the vault who we've ever met, he proves to be able to imitate their powers, even though they're not mutants. And, that could mean all kinds of things. I think the biggest reveals in here are one thing that you talked about before we recorded, Ian, that Sync seems to sort of he seems to be a sort of unreliable narrator of the events that we're seeing. And the other big reveal to me is that like we do get a look inside the vault. There seems to be some kind of like AI running things. What do y'all make of that?
Yeah, City within the dome. Hickman has had an AI named City running a facility called the Dome before.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, God. That's what that reminded me of.
Yeah, this is his Ultimate Comics. This is his Ultimate Comics from 10 years ago.
Oh, really? Right. Oh, I don't know about that. What's that like?
So in Hickman's run on Ultimates, there was basically after Brian Michael Bendis wrote a trilogy of events called Ultimate Enemy, Ultimate Mystery, and Ultimate, I don't know what the third one was, in which Ultimate Reed Richards stages his own death and then becomes this sort of like huge like ultimate villain of the remaining characters who are still alive in the Ultimate Universe after Ultimatum. And what ends up happening in the Hickman run is that he lives in his sort of like I think it is he makes his way back from the negative zone, and then he has his own sort of like fast evolving AI zone, but he just takes over all of like Europe with it. It's like a huge like fast time zone technological dome that just keeps expanding over Europe. Like it's sort of like a mind-boggling storyline, and then he just kills all of Asgard with it. And that's like in the first couple like issues of Hickman's Ultimates. You know that it's so Hickman in the sense that it's so ambitious. And but so this just like the same place? Like I'm confused by that.
So. What do you think, Ian?
Yeah, it's difficult to reconcile because, of course, the Ultimates is supposed to take place in a different continuity. The since folded in, I guess, Ultimates line. So whether, yeah, I don't know whether we're supposed to see this city and dome as a 616 analog of those same Ultimates entities and what other parallels we're supposed to draw. Although in the same pages that we are meeting the dome, the city inside the dome, and reacquainting ourselves with the OG Children of the Vault that we remember from Carrie's Supernovas, I couldn't help but notice that other than Serafina, the others are all analogs of members of the Fantastic Four.
Oh.
Wow.
Whoa.
I didn't consider that.
Me neither. I mean, I don't know if there's something there or not. It certainly is possible because, right, like Secret Wars was basically supposed to like mush together all these different Ultimate Universe elements and others.
Yeah, but it only did that to some extent. But that being said, like Ultimate Reed Richards is like a main player in 616 right now. Like he's implied to be from another universe, but he's been around for some time. He was like a really important player in Venom by what's his name? Come on. The King in Black Venom
Cates.
stuff.
Donny Cates.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know. I mean, I think one conclusion we can draw is like this AI is like running things. Like these people who are the champions of the vault, they are not in charge, you know?
No.
They like it just tells them to basically like die and be brought back as like newly enhanced forms or who knows what exactly, and they just like acquiesce to that, you know? So there's something going on here where like the vault is we're seeing just a little tidbit of the internal power structure of it, and we'll see more later because it looks like all but one of them died, maybe all of them, and that means that our like trio of heroes will probably move deeper in there and encounter others. People in this city they say is sparsely populated, which indicates further that there is a kind of like large scale AI presence if there aren't that many actual people, which in turn just speaks to the kind of like overall theme that we can't forget throughout the Dawn of X and Reign of X, which is like mutants versus post-humans, mutants versus AIs, and like I still hold out hope that this is going to have to do with the world in some way, but I don't know.
Yeah, and this issue really is all about that. Thematically, it's very important. I mean, it speaks to the idea of like adaptation and different sorts of things we might consider evolution, right? We have Sing's powers now being able to adapt to post-human stuff, which is like mutants are obviously finding new ways to advance their people, and that's intimidating to the Children of the Vault to a large extent. But it's also like, the proto-human, not proto-human, sorry, post-humans are like this looming threat that we know from Hoxpox, is coming to bite mutants in the ass, right?
Right. I do hope and expect that Nimrod will come along sooner or later, whatever is going to be like Nimrod's origin.
Very soon. We have Nimrod on the cover of issue 20. So
Oh God.
two
Oh,
issues.
wow.
Whatever happens next issue is
Great.
going
So
straight
shit
into
is
Nimrod.
getting really serious.
Great.
I feel like sometimes we're forgetting that we're, by the time these issues come out, we're already like almost 2 years into Hickman's X-Men. So we can expect a lot of storylines to really really ramp up now. One more thing about the city, I guess. I just looked it up again, and it's so visually similar, like the like talking interface. It can't be a coincidence, right? Because it says, and I also read up again on the Marvel wiki. City is the living embodiment of the dome with the maker Reed Richards, Children of Tomorrow, erected in northern Germany. So, and as Ian said, it says city and dome in here. It can't be a coincidence. And it just looks almost, it has like a slightly different color palette, but it looks almost identical, the like interface. I'm really interested though. I do like when Hickman reincorporates elements from his previous runs. He did that back when he was working on Avengers. He brought up a lot of stuff that had been previously set up in Fantastic Four. So I do love that sort of stuff. There was one more thing I wanted to bring up. Oh, right, because I just read like the most asinine sentence on this wiki page, and I kind of want to share it with you. When Tony Stark was held captive by the children, Stark's self-conscious technology interfacing brain tumor Anthony convinced the city to rebel against the Maker. I remember that being a thing. Yeah, I mean that's just Hickman can be like that as well.
Right. I mean, I guess we're gonna find out. Yeah, in like 2 issues of X-Men. I'm pleased to hear that it's gonna like stay on a plot instead of just being this kind of intermittent anthology that deviates from the main plot as delivered by other books. And
Right.
I don't know. One thing I wondered is like Sync just gonna take over the vault? Like, if he can really copy their powers, then there's nothing they can do to like stop him, right? So
Yeah, what are we thinking?
he might be it might end up with him as
what
like
are we thinking is going to walk out of the vault when it opens? Yeah.
It could be just Sync
God.
as a kind of like Galactus level being or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or the dynasty of he and Laura's cybernetically enhanced children.
One thing I wanted to bring up though was I was kind of surprised by some of the I guess confused is a better term, by some of the like fast time logic in this, because one of the characters, I don't know who exactly it is, says something along the lines of like we'll be in here for like a day.
That's him. That's him.
Oh yeah, that's right. Maybe, and he's like, maybe we'll even be back for dinner, and it's like they know that the vault is like a fast time zone. They've be gone for years in like regular time, right? Like
yeah.
That doesn't seem to come up a lot. So but maybe that ties, because it seems pretty deliberate. Maybe that ties in with the unreliable narration stuff you were bringing up, because we get this internal monologue as the fight is happening, and of course the ending that we won't spoil. It seems to be in some ways related to like huge amounts of time that we know these characters will be in there, and the unreliableness of some of their memories, right?
Right. He can hardly remember what was happening when they first went in. But it does make sense to sort of... I mean, him and Laura are younger than Darwin, I think. Like, if one of them is to be the, like, naive one who's like, yeah, this isn't so bad, I guess it's fine to make it him. It's sort of like it's like a horror trope, I guess, right? Like, as characters walk into a bad situation, for one of them to be like, no, come on, what's so dangerous about this?
What's the worst thing that could happen?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Oh.
I really like the info page about the murder no man thing, because I just, again, there's something so insidious about it, about turning it into this weird like technically it's a post-human, right? We can kill them, right?
Yeah, that the children of the Vault are sufficiently post-human that the second law of mutant kind does not apply to them. And
It's just it's so insidiously like opportunistic.
It is.
There's something great about that.
And if you draw that logic out into the long term, what it kind of indicates is that like what Krakoa is building toward is this sort of inverse of one of the worlds we saw in Hoxpox, where like post-humans have mutants on this reservation, where they're like the mutants have the humans on a reservation, and they're like, well, as long as you don't fucking like augment yourselves enough to really vie with us, then you're fine. Stay on the damn reservation. But if you then we're allowed to kill you because you are no longer.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And it's great because when we were first reading, I wonder if that was intentional. When we were first reading Hoxpox, it seemed like that was the world we were seeing because, the librarian character was like, the days of Homo sapiens are over. And of course, we didn't know that those referring to post-humans rather than mutants. And so we were just assuming, these are mutants that are keeping humans in a reservation until, of course, we found out those are post-humans holding mutants in a reservation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think this conversation has made me feel a lot more hopeful about this issue than I first did upon reading it. And I think we better stop so I can get back to moving.
True.
All right, but yeah, February sure gave us some X-Men magazines to chew on, folks. So, but until next time, Krakoa is for all mutants, Iraqi mutants, Mojo World mutants, World mutants, Vault mutant post-human hybrids? Why not? Let's wait and see.
We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Say you don't know me, I recognize my face. Say you don't care who goes to that kind of place. Need